Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope all of you watching this are having a pretty good day, and I hope to see all of you in the next class period. Today, I want to talk about the particulars of the comparison and contrast essay and try to give you a couple of tips as to the best way to write that essay. I apologize for being in slovenly attire, and I also apologize for the weird lighting off to the back here and the fact that it looks as if I may have a halo when the vast majority of you assume I am in a place that's far from heavenly or deserve to be in a place that's far from heavenly. I will talk about the point by point method later in this presentation. I will also talk about the point by point method in a separate presentation in class, and that presentation will also be loaded up to YouTube. So you should get all the details you need about the point by point method either in class or through this presentation. But please understand that this essay is asking you to use the point by point method as the main way of doing your comparison or contrast. There are 8 topics, I believe. In all reality, there are actually 7. I'll explain why. Topic number 1, console gaming and PC gaming. If you are all gamers, I think that this one should be relatively easy. I think that a lot of people uh, have strong opinions about one or the other. And I think it's important to understand that the comparison and contrast should be a means to an end. You're not comparing just to compare. You're not contrasting just to contrast. Number 2, Taco John's and Taco Bell. People outside the Midwest have no idea that Taco John's exist. People who have moved have ever so often told me that they miss Taco John's and that Taco Bell is not the same. If you are a person who is a firm believer that one of these is great and the other one isn't, or that one of these is a ripoff of the other, or that tacos are good 24/7 and these are two great places to get it, this is your essay. Bernina versus Pfaff. This is for my wife. Every time when I ask her if she has any great ideas, she talks about these two sewing machine companies. Unless you have costumed 1,000 costumes for 1,000 plays, or unless you are a quilter or a seamstress of some sort, somebody who puts Betsy Ross to shame, I think this is one that's more of a joke than it is anything else. But if you want to go for it, it's something in your comfort zone, go for it. Babe Ruth and Shohei Ohtani. Babe Ruth was a pitcher. He held a World Series record for strikeouts before he became Babe Ruth, who hit 714 home runs. Shohei Ohtani is one of the best players in Major League Baseball. He pitches, he hits home runs, he's a great hitter, he's a great pitcher. Compare and contrast. If you're not a native South Dakotan, this one probably doesn't make any difference to you. But South Dakota, it seems, is engaged in a constant civil war. And part of that civil war is East River versus West River. East River has Sioux Falls, West River has Rapid City. East River has a lot of economic development of and farms. West River is ranching and tourism. And people in West River talk smack about people in East River, and people in East River talk smack about people in West River. And remember, this is a one take thing. So my cat Hera has decided to show up and say howdy, and this is the way it's going to work. Cable versus streaming. What do you get to watch on cable that you can't watch on streaming? What do you watch when you're streaming that you can't watch on cable? How do the two experiences differ? Are there benefits to one? Are there limitations that both share? This next one's a little bit stupid, perhaps, but it should also be relatively easy. Contrast and compare our classroom, bead 318, with any other classroom that you have class in. And finally, another silly one, the two action figures pictured below. As you're comparing and contrasting, you can compare the packaging, you can compare the action figures themselves, you can compare what's good, great, bad, and ugly about each of them. This will be posted, so I'm not going to leave the photo up very long, but certainly the Ludwig von Beethoven action figure and the Zatanna action figure, compare and contrast to your heart's content. Next, here are the due dates. If you're in the Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, the final copy is due November 21st, 11:59 p.m. If you're in the Tuesday, Thursday class, it's due November 22nd. In other words, you have no essays over Thanksgiving break. Remember, there's no grace period for the essays. I will start docking points if it's late. 3 to 4 pages. We've talked about this formatting before. I think most of you have been pretty good about that. Same with using the Google Docs default font. I think most of you have been pretty good about having the proper heading on the paper. But again, double check if you haven't been doing that. Format matters. Please follow the format. Remember, you need a title. Title should be something a little snappy. Think about the stuff that we talked about with the smart brevity: 6 words or fewer, single syllable words, strong words. Plagiarized work will receive a 0. See, even Hera doesn't think that zeros are a good thing. Turnitin.com and Google Classroom will be used to detect any plagiarism. The Turnitin portfolio or folder will be available to you long before the final essay is due, so that you will be able to do a plagiarism check on your own and ask me if you have any questions. The rubric is the same as always, and this one and the next one, it's all four. It's kind of all or nothing. So come back and take a look. Do you have insight into this issue? Is the organization clear and effective? And in this case in particular, are you following a point by point organizational method? And as you keep going here, do you have concrete details to support your point? And do you have some variety of sentence structure? And are you avoiding the grammatical errors, especially the ones I've marked before: sentence fragments, run on sentences, those sorts of things, passive sentences? I talked about the point by point method. Let me show you what not to do first. What not to do is the block method. You begin with your thesis. That's going to be the same in both. This is compare and contrast Iron Man and Batman. So point 2 is going to be Iron Man. You'll talk about Iron Man's origin. You'll talk about his tech and accessories. You'll talk about his use of wealth. You'll talk about his sidekicks. In short, you're going to write an essay about Iron Man. Then you're going to talk about Batman, and you're going to talk about his origin, and you're going to talk about his tech and accessories. You're going to talk about his use of wealth, and you're going to talk about his sidekicks. You're going to have a separate essay about Batman. You're going to have a separate essay about Iron Man. You'll try to sum everything up in the conclusion. I don't think that's the best method to do comparison and contrast. A better method is the point by point. You'll have your introduction. Then you'll talk about the origin, and you'll talk about Batman's origin and Iron Man's origin. Both had parents who died or disappeared. Right? You'll talk about the tech and accessories. Batman has his suit, he has all sorts of other things. Iron Man has that armor. Batman needs the plane to fly great distances. Iron Man can fly up into space with his armor. The wealth, both of them are ridiculously rich. In the DC universe, Batman might be the richest person alive, or Bruce Wayne. Tony Stark is also ridiculously rich. Batman has had a series of Robins. Iron Man sidekicks generally, I think, are people like his secretary and things like that. or people like that. And then you do your conclusion to sum everything up. I believe that this is a far better way to do it. Finally, as always, there are some adapting tips. This one, I think, is one adapting tip with 3 subpoints. Keep the focus on the subject of the paper, not the writer of the paper. I believe that if you read the essay aloud, and then you turn around and you read the essay aloud from the last sentence to the first sentence so that you don't get caught up in the flow of the writing, you'll be able to avoid that. Reading the essay aloud from the last sentence to the first sentence also, I believe, will allow you to catch a lot of the grammar mistakes. And then finally, in order to keep yourself with the focus on the subject of the paper, not the writer, and to determine if you're using concrete verbs and nouns, ask yourself after you've listened to it aloud, top to bottom and bottom to top, ask yourself if you're making the complicated comprehensible. Anybody can take something simple and make it sound complicated. The goal of communication is to make the complicated easy to understand. I hope this was helpful. I'll be happy to answer any questions in class. If you are not feeling well and you're going to miss a class period, feel free to shoot me an email. Once again, I hope you all have a good day, and we'll talk to you next class period.